What's the matter, darling?
I'm missing my sister Manya, big sister. Yeah.
You're missing her too, Lewis.
Do you think we'll be together at Christmas?
I don't know, darling. We know how everything is all a bit unusual just now. Okay? Can I tell you a story?
Yeah.
Okay. You snuggle up and have a story?
Yeah.
Well, what kind of story would you like then?
A story about Christmas where people are missing their family.
A story about Christmas where people are missing their family. Oh dear. Okay, I think I've got a story.
What?
Well, okay, this is a story about a family at Christmas. What do you do on Christmas Day? You open presents. What else do you do?
Have dinner.
Have dinner, yeah.
Christmas tree.
A Christmas tree, like we've got. Well, they'd open their presents by the Christmas tree.
What did they get?
Oh, well, that's a different story to the one I'm going to tell you. Maybe I'll tell you that later. But they were just about to sit down for their Christmas dinner and something terrible happened.
What?
I'll tell you what happened.
What?
There was a power cut.
What?
You know what a power cut is?
Yeah, it's when the lights come off.
The lights went off, the cooker went off, everything went off. But at least the food had been cooked, and so they were able to eat.
If they haven't, they would have.
But the trouble is, Christmas is at winter time, so they were eating and it was beginning to get dark. The dad, just a few days before, as luck would have it, had bought loads of candles. What do you think he did with the candles?
Put them on. Put them on.
Well, the dad said, I have an idea. What we can do, the dinner is cooked, thankfully. We'll have our Christmas dinner by candlelight. Wow. And it was quite magic. And they ate their dinner by candlelight. But the trouble was that after the dinner, there was still the power cut. So that meant there was no lights. But also it meant, well, there was no Wi-Fi. And
Wi-Fi?
no Wi-Fi. And the dad had forgotten to charge up the phones.
That means nothing can get on.
No iPads, no telly, no tablets, no screens at all. And
no playing games.
no playing games. And all the children in the family went, Dad, this is a disaster. Oh no, they said, this is the worst Christmas ever.
But the Grinch was the worst Christmas
You
ever.
couldn't, with the Grinch was the worst Christmas. Maybe the Wi-Fi went for his Christmas too. Well,
No.
the dad had another brilliant idea.
That's good. I think this happened.
Do you know what the idea was?
No.
Do you want me to tell you?
What?
This is what he did.
What?
Well, he collected some of the candles he'd bought a few days before and put them on the plate. And then he put the plate on the table. And he told the children what his idea was. We're going to sit round these candles like people sit round a campfire. And the light that they give us is going to give us ideas for us to tell each other stories. Well, the children weren't that pleased. Stories, it's going to be so boring, they said. Well, said the dad, why don't I tell the first story? And why don't I tell you the story of how I met your mum? And so he told his children the story of the magic day he travelled through the mountains of the Highlands on his way to meet their mum, although of course then he had no idea that is what he was going to do. Well, at first they didn't really want to listen, but soon they became very interested and fascinated about the time before they were born. And then the mum started to tell her story too. And soon she was talking about what it was like when she was a little girl and stories from when she was at school. And she told him about the time she used to go horse riding and fell off the horse. And of the dog that she used to look after and loved very much. Well, as the children listened, they decided they wanted to tell a story as well. And so round the candles on the plate, they told their stories. They were memories of funny things that had happened at school, and then they remembered a time on holiday when the wind had blown the tent down. And then they got sad because those stories reminded them of their big sister who had been with them but wasn't with them now. They missed her and wished that she could be with them for Christmas. But then they looked into the candlelight and started to share memories about their sister and tell stories about those memories. Once they had started, well, the stories just kept on coming, and a lot of them were really funny memories that they'd all shared. It did make them feel a bit sad, but at the same time, it made them feel as if their sister was with them. So they kept on telling more stories, and it made them feel much happier and closer to her, even though she wasn't there. And so that evening, around the plate with the candlelight, they all told stories. Stories about people they love who they missed, stories about their memories from when they were younger, and they even told funny stories and fairy stories, and even a couple of scary stories. And then, after all these stories, the dad suddenly said, "I think it's about time now that the power cut came to an end." And up he went to the light switch and turned it on.
Wait a minute, Dad. Was there really a power cut?
No.
Why did you do that?
Well, you see, I switched off the power because it was a way of getting us to tell stories. Can I do something with you? Well, the dad took Puddles, their soft toy dog, and he held her softly in his hand and asked his children, "Am I holding Puddles in my hand?" "Yes," they said. And he covered her so they couldn't see her, and he said, "Am I still holding Puddles?" "Yes," they said. "Of course you are, because we saw she was there before." Then the dad went up and went to the kitchen. He'd put Puddles on the kitchen table and so now no longer had her. But then he asked the children the question, "Am I still holding Puddles?" And they said, "No, you're not." "Well," said the dad, "I'm not holding Puddles in my hands, but there's different ways to hold someone. You see, I'm thinking about Puddles, and so she's in my heart and she's in my thoughts." "I know it's really hard," said the dad, "when you're missing someone. And it's okay to feel sad about it. But the secret is, you can still feel close to that person and you can still hold them. You can hold them in your heart and in your thoughts. And one of the best ways to do that is tell stories about them. And soon you'll be together again, and you'll have more memories and more stories to tell. This story was told for the Scottish Refugee Council's evening of storytelling called Apart But Still Together. All the money raised by it will go to their winter appeal to support refugees and asylum seekers over the winter months. The Scottish Refugee Council does amazing work. It supports over 1,800 refugees and their families every year. This year alone, the Scottish Refugee Council has supported 667 refugee families in rebuilding their lives and settling into their local communities after they have received refugee status. They've answered 1,266 calls this year to their helpline and offered vital help and support. If this time of uncertainty, loss and separation has shown us anything, it's shown us that none of us are immune from events and happenings which are beyond our control. But what is within our control is how we respond to them and how we respond to each other. How we find ways to support each other and be with each other even though we may be apart. The more candles that shine together, the more the light will conquer the dark.